You know what? It's time, isn't it? We are at 2 o'clock Eastern time, 11 o'clock Pacific time. So hopefully Avi and Gary will be joining us soon, but I think we should make full use of the time available. So why don't we get started with, so I'm just going to quickly introduce this session. We just heard about STEM songwriting from these veteran expert songwriters. Definitely a fun session for me. Now, some people might say that STEM songwriting should be left to the experts, but I believe that those on this panel have a different view and want to tell us about how student songwriting can be both valuable and actually feasible. So we're going to hear from Tom McFadden of the Nueva School in California, Avi Silber of Northwest High School in Maryland, Sarah Ward, who's a recent graduate of the UW Education School out here in Seattle, and Gary Grossman, an animal ecology professor at the University of Georgia. So the original plan was self-introductions of each panelist, two of whom aren't here yet. So let's just get started with Tom and Sarah doing their self-intros, and we'll go from there. So thank you both for being here, and Tom, you are up.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. It looks like I see 20 participants, so hello to you, whoever you are. I can't see you. I'm an 8th grade science teacher. Because I'm an 8th grade science teacher. Oh, can you hear my audio?
Yes, I can.
Okay, check. Okay, I got a warning from Zoom. Okay. You can also hear all the people in the Starbucks with me because I'm on a middle school camping trip, so found some internet here. I started making science music videos in 2008 as a course associate for Stanford human biology programs, and it was just a fun way for me to connect my passion for music with my love of teaching, and it was a really, really cool way to connect with students. I was only a couple years older than them. We had a lot of shared musical taste, and it just sent me on this crazy journey of a positive feedback loop where the more I would make songs, the more positive feedback I got, the more I would bring other people and collaborators in, and it kind of grew into this crazy career almost, where I now travel all around helping middle schoolers and high schoolers and people of all ages make their own songs. It's been really important for me to try to get away from like me as the musician and get towards student creativity, because I feel like as an educator, that is just a huge priority for me. So I want to give you a tiny sense of what that looks like by showing you one of a recent student music video. This is something where they research, write the lyrics, create the song, create the video over a semester-long course called the Science Rap Academy. And this is separate than science class. I've just established a culture at my school where it's like, oh, we make science rap music videos, and it's very interdisciplinary, but it doesn't have to be connected necessarily to what we're learning in class. But this guy chose to do a song about DNA, which we had been learning about. So if you guys are up for it, I'm going to play it for you.
Science Rap Academy! Research written, performed, and edited by the students from the Nueva School.
Nitrogenous bases, sugar, phosphate, nucleic acids all the way. Every living thing's coded by DNA. DNA. Every living thing's coded by DNA. DNA. Every living living things coded by DNA. Is nucleic acids, that D is deoxyribose. Molecules that are first and foremost in the complex coding of aminos, making up the blueprint to life inside you. Call it your genome, cause the shape of proteins is written in a code inside of your genes. Every single thing alive, predator and prey. Every single player in the NBA. Animals, plants, even bugs on the subway. Everything's coded by DNA. I know by the structure, it's known by the name of a double helix. Got two biramines, two different purines of hydrogen bonds. Taking adenine, thymine, and cytosine, guanine. You all know what I mean. Making my cells while I'm ramming it, yeah. Nucleotides making all forms of life. They're coded for genes that are dominant, yeah. I know, life on Earth can boil down to molecules. Okay, hold up, let me think on my DNA.
All right, so that is just a little snippet. I'll spare you the second verse, but I've probably made hundreds of videos at this point, some by me, mostly by the students, and would love to talk more about it after we meet our other panelists.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry about that. All right, I am Sarah, and I came to this work a little bit accidentally. I was studying creativity in the College of Education, and I ended up joining this interdisciplinary team with Greg included and Katie Davis from the iSchool and another person who does interdisciplinary work. And we had on our hands all of these student artist statements and student songs related to an annual science fair. And we wanted to know, we started off just wanting to know anything, like just what were they about? And so we read through them and open coded them and started to pick up some major themes when the students were the ones in charge of creating songs. So their songs were all about biology, and it was part of an annual science fair in which students could choose any number of disciplines to showcase their work. They could do videos or any kind of art form, and we specifically looked at the students who created songs. And so we had 81 of them collected over a 12-year period. And we ended up, I think the most exciting finding, at least for me, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but the most exciting finding was that we found that when they were creating their own music, they were able to make personal connections to science that they otherwise may not have been. So several of the songs were about a student's grandmother had cancer, so she wanted to explore and learn about cancer more, and because her grandmother taught her to sing, this was a way that she could connect back to that. Things like that. In my work outside of this, I explore identity and the creation of identity and human development and learning. And so the extent to which these students were able to see themselves as scientists through music was something that we explored a little bit, and the extent to which they were able to take on scientific identities because they then had this personal connection. And because all we had were these artist statements, we don't know that actually happened. But being able to think about it that way was a fruitful way to frame why it's important for students to be tasked with creating their own songs. So I think that's everything.
So Tom and Sarah, you've already started addressing this, but can we maybe say a little more about why have students write science songs? Like, writing a science song is kind of a crazy task anyway. It's hard enough for scientists to do. And Lodge McCammon, for example, has said, students, they're kind of novices in music and they're novices in the science. So why ask them, he asks rhetorically, why ask them to do two things, both of which they're bad at on average? So can you each say a little more about that?
Sure. I'll take a crack at it first. The first answer is, I would say instead of asking, maybe inviting would be another way to put it, because I've become a pretty firm believer that there's a subset of students in a given classroom for whom writing a song is a really, really cool, really powerful way to connect to the material. And then there's probably a majority of students for whom it is like a totally weird, uncomfortable, unnecessary thing that they might even consider a waste of time. So I think for those students, there might be other ways that they can engage with the material, but I've become pretty skeptical of like forcing or requiring a full classroom of students to create something. And I'm a huge fan of like making it a cool thing that students actually want to sign up and opt into, whether that's one of several options on a school project, or like Avi has a club, or for me it's an elective. It's literally an elective they choose to participate in. And for those students, the reason why I think it's so important to invite them to do it is that they love music. Like most students of all ages really, really emotionally connect with music, and it provides an entry point. It provides a really, really fun, structured activity, especially for a kid who maybe is like, yeah, I like science, it's okay, but like to be able to learn everything there is to learn about blood coagulation so that I can translate it into a song can allow them to learn quite a bit of content. For me, I care very little about learning content. I really liked what Sarah said about talking about a personal narrative around cancer or something like that. I think as an educator, I care very little about scientific content acquisition in the brain. I care a lot more about creating an educational environment where students love what they're doing, they love school, they're feeling creative, they're feeling confident, they're critically thinking. And so these types of interdisciplinary, creative, artistic science projects allow me to achieve those goals really well.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. And I would also add on that so often the traditional grammar of schooling privileges particular ways of expressing yourself, and giving students the opportunity to think about other ways which science might be expressed in other forms, through which other representative forms through which it might be expressed, allows them to access and think about it differently. So for instance, we often had students use songs as metaphors, and they would, beyond lyrics, they would change the musical structure of the song in order to emulate a scientific concept. And the end goal is the same as if they were writing a paragraph on, what that scientific concept is and being able to say it, but they now have this extra thing supporting that, and helping them have a little bit more of a holistic picture of what science is and how to participate in science.
Sarah, did you see it? There's a question from Walter that says, could you please talk more about the way songwriting can change the student's view of him or herself as a scientist?
Yeah, so like I said, because this project was really just looking at science fairs, or at science fair data, we don't have extensive data backing up change in these students. We only had them for 1 year and just their essays. That said, from a human development standpoint, the idea that learning is participating, rather than, a behavioral change necessarily, but that it's participating in particular curriculum or a particular anything really, that when we ask students to participate in ways that they already identify with, kind of what Tom was saying, right? The sense that if you already identify as a musician, being able to then do so, sorry, now I'm like losing my words. It's a way of broadening those students' already created identities around musicians to potentially scientists, to scientific identities. And it's talked about in the literature as broadening participation. And so that you're giving students more access to ways in which they might identify with being a scientist. And I think anytime that happens, it's probably good, arguably.
Sure, and just to also jump in on that question, because I'm working with slightly younger students, I think in middle school or early high school, and I'm really interested in history of science, because to me having a narrative is such a better way to hook kids of any type in. And history often provides those narratives, whether they're narratives of, wow, different scientists competing, or really, injustice in the scientific field. I think all of these types of historical narratives are really, really useful at grabbing kids emotionally. And so that also is an opportunity, because I'll share my screen again and show you like a couple seconds of this Henrietta Lacks music video. But in this case, like the kids are literally like dressing up as scientists and being scientists. And in the middle school stage, I think they're at the stage where they're just like imagining what is possible out there. And so to like be in this cool creative project where they are a scientist, even if that scientist is doing some ethically sketchy things, I think it actually deeply, deeply affects their sense of what's possible. So I'll show you a little bit of that real quick.
And then she be done. Dr. Lawrence Warren Jr. was a surgeon on hand. He took the tissue sample for the test to be ran.
Dr. George Guy came on by, took a sample of cells, hoping they multiply.
Chicken bleeding technique he used to see
If the cells could live immortally.
Knock, knock, you're about to be cell shocked. Knock, knock, you're about to be cell shocked. That's my fam, we've been searching forever. Immortal cells live forever and ever.
Together ain't no way we gon' fail. With Henrietta Lacks cervical tissue cells.
Nobody do it better. They keep growing like mold on cheddar. Mary cut her cells like a shredder. Me and my assistants come together cause we know that her cells were the only ones that reassured our hope. Put the petri dish down, look through the microscope. Then that's when we knew they were multiplying. Whoa, check my data. It say I'm the man of the hour. Her cells replicate every 24 hours.
What? So just to add one more element that you saw there is that in addition to the historical thing being like the narrative juice, I think ethics are another source of narrative juice that really allows kids to dig in and provides them an entry point of something that is like, wow, this is nuanced and complicated, and was this good or bad, and let's talk about it deeply. So I'll just throw that out into the mix as another way to get kids hooked in. And it's music, it's ethics, it's history, it's social science, it's all these different things, bringing them into science.
Yeah, cool. I'm just going to go all fanboy on you for a minute and say, Tom would have been a featured speaker at this conference, and the only reason he wasn't officially featured is because he was unofficially on the committee to select the featured speakers. So it sort of, we weren't sure, like, logistically if we should nominate, but anyway, I just want to point out how unique this is, what Tom is showing, where the students are not simply writing songs about science, which is pretty unusual in and of itself, but they are writing songs about how scientists do science. So the data set Sarah was talking about, is a cool data set to explore. But most of those songs were about scientific facts or about personal journeys related to science. There was, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, there was relatively little sense of, here's a scientist on a journey to discover. A few songs did that, but so, and yet I think this is, this is exactly what we want students to really understand, that science isn't just a collection of facts, it's a process for understanding the world. So I guess this is more a question of Tom to start with, but did you refocus the students on the history because history is cool, which would be a fine reason, or was it more like, oh, there's Avi, hello Avi, or was it more like you wanted them to learn about science as process, or some combination of the two?
Yeah, good question. So a big part of my narrative is that I did a 2-year Masters of Science Communication program in New Zealand. And Avi, I don't know if you can hear me, but you might want to mute your microphone, because if we hear you, it'll switch to your screen. Cool. So yeah, in this 2-year Masters of Science Communication program, the thing they beat into us is storytelling. And I consider it almost a cliche of the world of science communication, that storytelling is what humans care about. And so I thought a lot about what it means to tell stories about science. I'm a firm believer that the science itself can be the story, whether you're telling the story of how cancer forms in a cell or the story of what a protein does. I think that storytelling, in fact, I think science should be the story. I'm skeptical of efforts to only tell scientific stories via humans. But that being said, there are lots of good stories out there in the realm of history. And so I think that was really what attracted me to history, is that it's a way to tell scientific stories that don't not only convey information about content, but also information about process. And that's just, as a science educator, that's pretty much how I think most of us are oriented, that we want to train scientists in scientific thinking, or we want to train non-scientists who are capable of engaging in scientific thinking. And therefore, the process of science is, to me, clearly a more important learning objective than any single piece of content. And so I was curious whether songs could be an avenue to get at process. And I would just say that yes, I think they have been, but that's still learning goal number 3. To me, learning goal number 1 is still creative confidence. Honestly, I'm in school, I'm doing something creative, and I'm enjoying it. So anyway, I would love to hear Sarah's thoughts about the kind of process question as well. And Avi.
Yeah, Avi, did you catch the question in your loading up here?
I'm muted by host. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so the question was, sorry, give it one more time.
So it was a very rambling, ill-focused question from me. It was barely comprehensible, but the gist of it.
Please pardon this interruption for one very brief announcement.
Sorry.
For all students who are planning to attend either of the football games at Good Counsel High School this evening, please remember that Good Counsel is a private school, and therefore there are no tickets. All tickets sold at the gate are $5. There is no MCPS student ticket price. Once again, all tickets to get into the game tonight are $5. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Yes, this is definitely an educational context. So question about sort of science songs as kind of recitations of facts. I was noting that students and others tend to write science songs as here's a bunch of facts that we're going to set to a melody to make them memorable. I was saying Tom's songs with his students tend to be much more about the history of science and the process of doing science, discussing the value of that and how that can be done. So Avi, this is a great time to introduce the 4SW.
Well, give them a second. They're going to be here. The bell just rung, and it's after school. So they're going to come, and they'll be here in the next few minutes.
Okay.
But for now, I can answer the question. Then when they get here, we'll introduce them all.
Sure.
Or the officers are coming.
Yeah,
so
great.
To answer your question, my feelings have evolved a lot over time, and a lot of it has actually been in the context of, so Tom and I communicate and often bounce ideas off each other. When I first came across his work and was talking to him about it, I was fascinated because I did find that a lot of his stuff seemed much more into the process of developing really good quality media. And I was very much trying to create stuff that was much more about getting songs stuck in people's heads, making it so that they had to learn it whether or not they wanted to. Since then, I've kind of ended up moving towards a hybrid. So it depends on the time. So here's one thing. So one of the first videos that I made during my student teaching, actually, and it's my biggest video. It's like 300,000 views. So it's like I call it my one-hit wonder. But right after I made it, we had a test on. It was on the sliding filament model of muscle contraction, and one of the kids wrote the song word for word as her answer to an essay question, and that was wrong, because that's not what the question was asking. It was just a small part of it. And so I was realizing that while rote memorizing things has merit, it isn't necessarily effective. It doesn't actually teach them. If they can recite a song, it doesn't mean they understand it. And so from there, I shifted to the idea of the music can be as a different option from notes and PowerPoints. And so we had a macromolecule unit where you talk about carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. I was realizing from test data that was a unit that students by and large did poorly on, because it's arbitrary. It's hard to figure out what's important. And unfortunately for that, everything could be testable. You know, what is the monomer or polymer of each macromolecule? What elements can you find in each macromolecule? What are the uses in the body generally for each macromolecule? And on the notes, it seems like it's hard to figure out what's important. Whereas in a song, it was actually pretty easy to highlight the important parts and make that just easy to rote memorize. So I realized that music is useful for things that rote make sense, but not necessarily for having them memorize processes. Because if they're going to memorize a process, they're not actually understanding or thinking about it. But if they have to remember a bunch of qualities of a certain type of molecule, or if they have to remember, like last year, my kids won this contest. There was a pie company, pie making, that did a pie day contest. And it was, they had to make a song about pie. And so they did one for the first 10 digits of pi. And I wasn't one of the students that bothered to memorize them. But in the process of this contest, just hearing their song once, I know it's 3.1415926 if you want to learn about these digits. Like, it gets stuck in my head. So it's, for rote, it works, but rote isn't a good method for learning processes. So from there, so in terms of the educational aspect there, that's my stance in where it's educational. However, writing songs with students, I totally agree with everything Tom was saying, in the sense of, and you'll meet them in a few minutes, but the kids in the club, by and large, I think the biggest thing they get out of it is by working with each other and by doing these projects together. I mean, you've got kids that are totally silent when they join the club, and we do karaoke sometimes, and they're never going to participate, and then suddenly they're wanting to. And so a kid that came in just to edit or to film is finding themselves singing on stage with 2,000 other students replying their lines back to them. So like, we have a joke, because one time we did a song called "You're So Obsessed with Nucleus." It was talking about how we only talk about mitosis in school and not interphase, since the song's about interphase. And so during the chorus, they're like, "You are so obsessed with nucleus." Actually, I can show that. Can I play that? Is that how that works? Because that was a phenomenal moment in the club's history, was that day. So how do I share my screen on here? I've switched to 3 different computers. Now I'm on a Chromebook.
Bottom center of the Zoom window, there's a share screen button. green square.
I'm a member.
Yes, you are. Grab headphones.
Ow.
Actually, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
We grab 3 more pairs of headphones and 1 splitter.
Wait, what?
3 more pairs of headphones, not including that one.
Okay.
And 1
There's
splitter.
2.
Yeah, so if you unhook that one from there, you'll have to unhook them from the computer.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
that's
just pulling
3.
out this thing.
That's 3.
Oh, no, this one counts. That's one of them.
Oh, so
1,
3
2,
more?
1 more. Yeah, and 1 more splitter.
I don't know what a splitter is, Mr. Silber.
It's the thing that splits the sound. It's right there, that white thing.
That white thing. This white thing?
No, that's
Sarah?
a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll mute myself while you're pulling. Well,
Are you feeling okay? The light looks weird or something. Are you doing all right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay. What?
Okay.
Do I not look okay?
Well, I think it's just the shadows or something. You have kind of an odd tinge to your skin. I just wanted to make sure you weren't getting cyanotic on us or something.
No, it's okay. It's super bright out here, and it's
Okay.
hot, but it's okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
Sarah, maybe you want to jump in while Avi gets his act together.
Yeah. So I think that sorry. So I think that there are the songs for rote memorization make a lot of sense, but what I kept thinking about, and Greg, correct me if I messed this one up, but we had, I believe, 2 or 3 students who and one thing I've been thinking about ever since we've had these students is how do you use songwriting, how do you scaffold this kind of conceptual learning into it? But we had 2 or 3 students who actually made their songs into scientific studies. And so they generated songs, and what I believe one of them was they put a heart monitor on their grandfather and measured, there was one about sleepiness and heart rate, one about sleepiness and heart rate, and one about stress and heart rate. And they created songs meant to stress you out, and they measured heart palpitations. Is that, it was heart palpitations, right?
More or less.
Yeah, and some anecdotal stuff about how stressed they were. And so I think it's true that whereas it seems easier to make songs around rote memorization, but one of the things ever since reading those essays in particular that's been really interesting to me is how the way in which they used songwriting as a medium to explore a scientific concept. And we don't have their test scores or any sense of how much they understood or didn't understand. But I wonder, those students, I'm wondering how much of their understanding about those scientific concepts stuck with them.
Just a quick thought on that. I think the master of this idea that the medium is the message, the idea that you shouldn't be conveying the content via your lyric. In addition to conveying the content via your lyrics, you're conveying the content conceptually via the structure of the song. I think that's such an exciting idea. I think one of the masters of it is A Cappella Science, who hopefully was involved in this in some other capacity. But I would imagine that many people in the audience have seen his work. One of his, the one that comes to mind is The Arrow of Entropic Time, where he shot. It's all about, I don't even know, it's this physics concept that like time moves in one direction or something.
Right.
And the entire thing was shot backwards. And he learned, he memorized the entire song backwards so that he could shoot it backwards so that he could play the whole thing in reverse, showing things moving in reverse. And so that really reminds me of this idea that you're going to make a song about stress. Let's make a song that really stresses people out. I just think that's a really exciting layer of addition when it comes to communicating your science.
Right. And I think that there has to be some, if that is an ultimate goal, right, with a group of students, it's a different kind of scaffolding. It's a different kind of teaching to get them, because then you're building up all of these layer upon layer. of ways that they are not, I mean, they're not, generally speaking, kids are not traditionally accustomed to participating in school in that way and to participating in projects in that way. It's, you know, I mean, I would argue that you could do the same thing with a poster project and get them to think deeply about the colors of markers they're using and why they're using that, and et cetera, and applying that kind of teaching and studio-based learning really to songwriting would be fascinating, and also a lot of work.
All right.
Greg, do you want me to jump in and answer Brandy's question while we wait?
Sure.
Cool. So I saw Brandy asked one of my favorite questions, which is, do you try to inform the students about the culture and foundation of hip hop?
Were you guys hearing that?
No, we weren't hearing that, Avi.
No, sorry.
Here, I'm wondering if there's like Chromebook limitation. If I send a link to someone, would they be able to play it at a time?
Yeah, I would do it. Send me the link in the chat.
Okay.
So while he does that, the hip hop side of things I think is so important, given that I make primarily rap songs and hip hop songs, and that I work with really diverse groups of kids, some of whom are like very fluent in the history and vocabulary and culture of hip hop, and some of whom aren't. It is true that hip hop culture has become very mainstream and very much influential within pop culture. But I think it's really important for me, especially when I'm working with like more privileged white kids at my school, that they understand kind of not only the history of hip hop, but also the perils of cultural appropriation. And one of my favorite ways to do that, if anybody's looking for okay, I got the link from you. So yeah, if anybody's looking for a resource that will allow yourself or your students to engage with cultural appropriation, I'll share, when I click share on my screen, I'll show you a YouTube video that I use that does a really good job of getting a conversation started. It's by Amanda, somebody who's an actress in the Hunger Games. She made a video called Don't Cash Crop My Cornrows. So I'll just play you like 2 seconds of that. Do you guys know that? 4SW?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What was your guys' reaction to that video? Do you remember seeing it?
A long time ago, but
yeah, it came out a while.
I basically agreed with everything she said. Yeah, sorry, I don't.
No, that's good. I put you on the spot. So anyway, I'll just show you the video just so you have like a sense of, if anybody needs to access that video, you'll know the title of it. And then I'll just, right after I do that, I'll switch over to Avi's link and I'll skip to 148. Is that right, Avi?
No, 134.
134. Okay.
134 to 210 or 205.
134 to 205. Okay.
So black hair has always been an essential component of black culture. Black hair requires upkeep in order for it to grow and remain healthy. So black women have always done their hair. It's just a part of our identity. Braids, locks, twists, and cornrows, etc. Cornrows are a really functional way of keeping black textured hair unknotted and neat, but like with style. So you can see why hair is such a big part of hip-hop and rap culture. These are styles of music which African-American communities created in order to affirm our identities and our voices. In the early 2000s, you saw many R&B stars wearing cornrows: Alicia Keys, Beyonce, R. Kelly, and many more. As hip-hop became more and more popular and integrated into pop culture, so did black culture. Eminem's album went 4 times platinum, and he achieved immense success in the hip-hop world. Black culture has...
So yeah, I don't know if you can hear me right now, but she goes from talking about hair to talking about music, and it just provides a really nice framing for students to have an interesting, sometimes challenging conversation. So now I'll switch over to this. We can come back to that topic if you guys want, but let's see the 4SW in action.
Me and you just throw it.
All you talk about is mattresses. All that does is split the DNA. I wanna talk about the interface. Interface stands for this is for chromosomes. Get you hate. Hopefully check what it means at the end of the chromosome. Just pretending show up in any chromosome mutation. Chromosomes reconnect.
Thanks. That was me in Egypt. I'm so
Hi,
sorry. I'm
So
Egypt.
we can do introductions now, actually.
Yeah, that was great. Tell me, Avi, who are the masterminds behind that great performance?
Well, I didn't write the lyrics.
Well, they can tell you.
All right. So Kaylin wrote the lyrics, right? She wrote mine.
Silber and
No, I didn't write anything in that one.
No, Meredith did her verse, and
I think
Kaylin
Aiden
did my
helped,
verse.
too.
that was the year before I did.
Oh wow.
So that was 2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago. I think that was
No, that was 2 years ago. I was
It
a
was
sophomore.
Oh, that was
It was during 3 school years, including this year ago.
So
It was
not
2 years ago.
Meredith told me under war.
Do you want to grab it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
So
I'll be back.
so this, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, they all introduced themselves earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not like an officer.
You were one of the first officers.
Okay. Anyways, I'm Angelina. I'm a senior, and I don't write any music, or I'm not music affiliated by any means. I just do the videos and edit the videos and storyboard videos, and that's it.
But you did jump in to perform in that song.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I did.
Oh, can you not hear anything?
Oh, that's
Sorry, we have like
I don't have
5
headphones.
daisy chain headphones. I don't know the headphones. I'll let you introduce each other.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
All right, you just sit here.
All right.
Hi.
Hello.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Vice President 1 and 2 of 4SW.
What do
I'm
you do
Egypt.
here?
I do vocals, lyrics, and I'm starting on producing.
Welcome.
Next.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I don't think you can even. Thank you. Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm the current president this year. It's my 2nd year, but I've gotten really involved, like super involved in this club. I do a lot of stuff. I don't have anything that I personally am like super good at. I don't think. I do kind of do everything except for animating.
You don't create videos, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, she did Clown of Dog.
Oh, no.
Really?
Yeah. I did one of mine. That was my first video I edited.
Okay, I'm not opening the door.
Other way. Okay, I'm Deborah. I am the 3rd vice president. I compose music, and I write lyrics, and I sing. So yeah, 3rd vice president. Silber. I'm Meredith. I do vocals and lyrics. She graduated last year. I'm back to love this too much.
That's better. Oh, there.
I can get on my computer.
There we go. That's
Well, welcome all of you. Thanks, students. I'm sorry I didn't catch everyone's name for joining us. It's great to see you and hear from you. Since ultimately, so this conference is attended almost entirely by instructors, but of course our goal as instructors is to help you students learn. So it's great to hear from you about what actually helps you learn things. So with that in mind, maybe we can go to a question more directed toward the 4SW. So I talked earlier about how Tom's music videos seem ridiculously improbable to me, that like videos of that quality would ever get made with middle school students. A further improbability to me is that this 4SW club exists and is functional and is popular.
well, popular, I wouldn't say that.
Popular 926.
Well, because of 926, it became more mainstream. But like in the early years, it's like, oh, I'm a part of 4.
Explain what 926.
Oh, okay. So 926 is like a song one of our producers made to get people to go to Chipotle for a fundraiser. So on that day, it was on 926. So
The past 2 weeks, they were having it on the morning announcement, like the 926 song.
926, 926, 926.
Here, they can play it.
That's blowing up on Snapchat, like our local Snapchat, it was blowing up, like, seriously. And the guy who was in it.
Here, since the sound doesn't work, just someone else mind playing it? If I put the thing here?
Okay.
How do I type to you guys?
Okay. Because anyone connected to a Northwest person was like getting this because it was so hilarious.
I'm not seeing the panel.
Yeah, but to answer your question, popular, I think we're like okay now, especially now since Silber has a class teaching music. So that's a good segue. Oh, by the way, there's a club. Please join. Please join. Please join. So,
They're also selling themselves so short. There's been a consistent 20 people at almost every meeting for the last 2-3 years, with like up to 60 people that many of them come periodically. One of the reasons I played that video, even though it's not one of the ones they listed wanting me to play, was because it really shows that even though teenagers can say mean things, by and large the school is very excited about them.
Do you want me to share right now?
Yeah.
Whoa.
From the beginning?
Sure. So I don't know if you can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Yep. All right, so the beginning of the video is silent, so I'll explain what's the purpose. Chipotle has like a 50% donation for a 4-hour time increment if you sign up. So we had a 4-hour time increment this last Tuesday.
Really? Yeah.
And so we always make a music video to advertise for it.
Not 26, not 26, not 26, not 26. At the not 26, not 26, not 26. We eating Chipotle on 926, not 26, not 26. Eating Chipotle on 926, eating Chipotle on 926, not 26, 26, 26. Eating Chipotle on 926, 926. We got on the clock, don't drive, you can walk. Money green, beanstalk, 96 Main Street, where's Bart? Don't think, don't need another thought. 4W, we got it along. 5'9", not a car. Come to Chipotle, get some food. 5294 SW on the 2. September 26, get a clue. Without the gas shit, don't know what to do. Like,
I don't know. I never seen the end actually.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Yeah, so that got everyone split whenever they were like on the morning announcements in my art class. So like whenever that comes on, like people would actually get up and dance. It was like Brandon, Tam, you know them.
Yeah.
Tam.
So nice.
But yeah.
But I actually had gym. I know I could tell the announcements, but I saw when they were making it, so
I was there when they conceived of the idea. Thank you.
Are you like individually giving some?
Yes, you are. You're in the video.
So it was people now are calling about 926.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And it's like yeah. So they got really into it in that one. But I have to credit Tom. This comes back to so one of the things that early on, most of our videos, like the first year or two, were just slides. That were like slides for teaching the thing. And then I saw how much this is before I think we were in touch, but I saw all the really great music videos like That's Metal. It's one of Tom's ones that I first saw and remember like really like that's so catchy. And I also didn't like it, but I also like it. It's like one of those kind of I couldn't stop. I like That's Metal. I like it better than Gas Pedal, frankly. And I say that for a lot of your parodies, actually. I didn't want to get away from the idea of them doing them originally, just because I don't know. That's just like a hang-up I have. Granted, like Egypt and Meredith especially has done a lot of good covers, but I just know from my own experience that if you can do every part of the process, it's really validating, and also it's a skill you kind of take with you. And so I've been kind of insistent that either they learn the different parts or together they learn how to do the different parts so they can continue onward. And coming back to the fact that we're called a secret society, they're always they used to always give me a hard time, like, Mr. Silber, everyone knows our songs now. We're not a secret society anymore. What's the secret about it? And it wasn't until the end of last year when I finally realized, as a bunch of our members were graduating, this one just graduated last year, is that just because they graduate doesn't mean that they're done being in the society. They can still participate. We have everything connected by Dropbox now. So like, one computer might finish recording a song. Another computer can be editing the song immediately because it's uploaded to the Dropbox in that computer. And so even long distance, we can all be working on projects. And so like, if she decides to study abroad one semester in like France or something, she can be spinning her verse in front of the Eiffel Tower. And so, but at that point, most of the students here wouldn't necessarily know who they were. It's kind of like, the stone needle, like a secret society spread around. And so, I forgot where, it's been a long week. Brain fried. I don't remember where I was going with that.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So, speaking, like, going back to the whole Dropbox thing, over the summer, we were even able to work from our own houses and, like, work on some stuff from home and, like, collaborate on the project we were doing.
No, that was
not
cool.
just that, but, like, from musical.
No, I'm just adding, like, also UMBC.
But they're kind of cool. We had, so all the computers here that we use for the club are things that I bought on eBay. And so I can't leave them here over the summer because the school gets used for other things. So I lent them to the kids to use over the summer. One of our other sponsors, Mr. Muick, he was canoeing down the Mississippi to set the record for the fastest descent of the Mississippi. I was getting married, so I wasn't able to really do that much of it. But a bunch of the experienced members and I decided to split up the different days. So every day he was going down the Mississippi, we wrote a new song to make like an epic tale with like dragons and giant mooses and stuff as he traveled down the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so we called it the musical.
But to add to like the whole connected of when you're away, I remember one time I was taking classes in Georgia at Savannah or SCAD, and like I had this film assignment and I did not know what to do. It was the first time I ever opened Premiere in my life, and like I FaceTimed or did the Google thing with Mr. Silber and was like, help me, and he did. And so it's like he's very good at like responding to help when you need it and like giving advice.
That was the day before my wedding.
Really? No, really?
It was like 2 days before, yeah. It was the week that's in Florida. So it was like the week leading up to it.
So yeah, this man's dedicated.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Did we talk about what we did for?
Well, they need to talk too. I haven't heard a lot from them.
Okay. So, do you wanna?
No, I meant they on the computer.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, we did just get a question from Brandy in the Q&A that I believe both Sarah and I answered in the Q&A section, but I'd love to hear the students' thoughts on this. The question was specifically about hip hop, and it was, why does hip hop fit so well as a tool for literacy? And I would just love to hear you guys' thoughts on kind of musical genres in general. What's your guys' attitude towards what genres you choose and why?
Well, who wants to go first? So I feel like we personally use rap the most because when you're trying to like teach different concepts, you can have a lot of information in like a short space. And it's catchy. Yeah. It can be very catchy, like, especially the hook. Yeah, the hook. Mm-hmm. And you remember it like that. Like I remember before I even joined Forest W, there was like a periodic trend. Oh my god. It was on the announcement. And it was like before I was in chemistry, I think. I used it.
It increases to the right.
Yeah. It was on the announcement and I used it. I was able to figure it out. I don't even like rap. I don't hate it, but I wasn't the biggest fan until I joined Forest W.
Well, like also with the hooks, you try to make it the most memorable thing you want to remember, like for that specific topic. So yeah, that's one thing about hip hop and it's just catchy. Like you remember beats and you remember, oh, that song was really good. Like for like classical music, who listens to classical music in our generation? I'm sure there are people out there, but you want to listen to like the instruments, not people talking. Then with pop is just so boring with their beats. It's like all sounds the same.
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
It all sounds the same. But with hip hop, there's more variation and more combined. It's like a melting pot of everything.
At the club, we don't just do rap. We do all sorts of genres too.
But recently, we've been doing a lot of rap because we've been trying to teach a lot of people. Yeah. I'm kind of miss making like songs, just like lyrical songs a little bit.
We can try that.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, doing that will take forever.
Yeah. Maybe like a non-conscious.
Yeah.
I know that. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to try to bring Sarah back in because I know that she did a lot of work with her students writing songs. And Sarah, I was curious, to what degree did your students choose rap or other genres?
Yeah, so I should say they weren't my students. It would have been way more fun if they were. But so out of those essays, I don't know that we ever looked at the exact proportions. But I would say rap and just kind of more pop lyrical songs were the two biggest genres that we saw. There was also some hard rock and metal songs, and there was definitely a little bit of classical and instrumental, especially in those ones actually that they used as science experiments. But rap and just lyrical songs generally were arguably the most that we saw. Is that true, Greg?
Well,
we don't have the percentages on that, do we?
I don't, but you know, what you're saying is true, except there were an awful lot of orchestral type songs. We had a lot of people who like play the oboe in the school orchestra, and so they wrote a piece for like oboe and bass, or, you know, solo trumpet about Huntington's disease, or, you know, something like that. So there was a lot of that. So I would say, yeah, there was a fair amount of rap, but less than I would have guessed.
Yeah.
You know, like teenagers like rap is so much of an oversimplification as to not be that useful.
Trebles and basses.
What?
Trebles and basses?
I don't get it either. See, I'm not.
Oh, wait. Like instead of acids and basses?
Never mind.
Like
Ignore him. He's irrelevant. Ignore him.
Can I ask another kind of awkward question?
Yeah.
I guess I will. So let me start with, so for SW, you know, we think you're great. One of the things we admire is that, you know, you seem to have a lot of cohesiveness as a group. Like, you enjoy getting together and making these songs. And Tom's students, at least in their videos, they appear to have a similar chemistry where this is not simply a school assignment. They're really, you know, they're really bringing their A game to it and enjoying it. So the rest of us kind of observing you from afar, like, how do we get that secret sauce? Like, how can we get our students to love what they're doing in that same way? So that's a broad question. Now, one possible answer that I'm going to throw out there, and I don't know if this is a good answer or not, but one thing I've heard is that, you know, with working with teenagers, if you can kind of recruit the students who are perceived as leaders by their peers, that, you know, if you can get them into it, then everyone else will follow. I'm not sure I like that idea, but I want to hear what each of you think of that.
When you do that,
in that mindset at all, or is that counterproductive?
That's counterproductive. When it's like that, it's like people just come and like hang out, and you get nothing done, and it's super.
Come on, you got it. You said exactly right. Go ahead.
It's super counterproductive, and we don't get any work done, and it just gets annoying, and you don't like it. We had that problem when I first joined, at least. I felt like it was just a hangout, like not. we weren't here to get stuff done. And it's funny. When I first joined, like the first day I went to club, the president right now. I'm the current president. The first day I went, I wanted to quit.
No, I've heard the story. Okay, I'm not.
Okay. It was disorganized. It was a mess, and I did not like it. But my sister here, who loves music and wanted to make a song, was like, "No, come on, please go again. Please come on, let's do it." And I'm like, "Fine, okay." But
I guess.
it wasn't. It wasn't until like, so on non-club days when we would come, that's when we started to see like people who really wanted to be there. And when we started to kind of change, in 4W, kind of started to change things a bit. We started to make it a bit more strict, right?
Yeah,
it was kind of like
the Constitution.
Especially when Silber and the previous president, Kaylin, they made a constitution for the club. It's like you had to have requirements, and so the people who were like, no, I don't want to do any extra things, they left, which I'm actually happy about.
Yeah, I don't say don't join the club, but at the same time.
But now we have people who actually want to be here, and it's amazing, and we get work done, and it's so awesome. And I don't know. For me, you need to find people who actually want to be there.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Rebuttal. One thing is, when I first joined, is that I wanted to leave also, but because I had no friends, I was alone, and everyone was making music, and I'm just like, I can't sing to help my life. I can't write music. Why am I even here? But then, like, I found some friends, or like, I found interest in like, oh, the videos are kind of not great. Let me actually try to help there. And I was like, okay. But to answer your question about how to motivate teenagers to do something, well, I want to minor in film and like do sequential art. So like doing this club will help me or make me have practice to accomplish what I want in life. So it's like, you got to find people that, like, if they want to grow up to be singers, you got to find those people and be there. But I also agree with Danielle about, like, people that that comes not just on Thursdays, but every other day of the week. Like, that's really important.
So with my experience, the first day I came to 4W, I was kind of nervous because coming into a new club, like I would be, but aside from like their point of view, I was actually very excited coming for the first time.
We were excited, but we were disappointed.
I wasn't, because me and Meredith, we can definitely say that 4W has like helped us a lot come out of our shell. Mr. Silber and there are many club members as well. Since we started 4W, we've both experienced like there are people that make us feel that it's not in place to be excluded. You can feel comfortable and actually grow. And me and Meredith both we both felt that Mr. Silber does a really great job of making people that are shy singers or they don't really know where they fit to, basically come out of their shell and feel this a place that's comfortable, whether you're a lyricist, vocalist, or you do camera work or producing or whatever.
Wow. Yeah, I think one of the most important things is to just have an environment that's open where people don't really judge others.
Yeah.
Because if you feel like you're being judged, you're not going to want to do really any work because you're going to feel like you'll get shot down. But if people feel like they can be themselves, then you're going to have a lot more people coming to join so they can be who they are and grow themselves without fear of being judged by someone.
In the beginning, though, like, to be honest, as Danielle was saying, like, it was very cliquey. Like, if you, like, I wasn't in any certain clique. I was friends with everybody, but I could tell, like, okay, so if you're a songwriter that likes rap, you're over here. If you like harmonizing, you're over here. Because Egypt and Meredith, they were off in the corner, always singing, doing whatever. And, like,
we'd be doing a song, we we'd have a different thing happen, and then all of a sudden we hear a harmony come from the corner, and then oh yeah, let's add that into.
No, because and it's like I can't walk up and be like, no, like I can't walk up and be like, hi, and they're just like, I will throw off their entire mojo. It's like you need like there was like when I personally I found it very segregated in like each thing you do, and like there wasn't a film aspect yet, so I made one. Yeah, I made one, and and I feel like that's important. Like you need to find your niche in a club, because in a club this big, like making music videos, you can find anything to do.
So one thing I wanted to add was that the leadership is honestly really, really important. Because, I mean, Mr. Silber knows that there was a point the leadership kind of was like leggy. Yeah. But then I think one of the reasons I kind of was like, I want to do this was our previous president came in battle, because she was the kind of person that was just like, oh my goodness, you can do this. Oh, come over here, join this. Let's do this.
She was very open. She was very
open. She's like, hey, guys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was so nice. So honestly, if you're going, like, I don't know, like, where any of your groups are or whatever is happening, but it is, like, you said you want to bring people popular in, not necessarily popular, the people you know you can count on, and that will be the ones to lead the club into being better and to have more confidence. Because she's intimidating, because she's a really good singer. But she's a good rapper. And she's a good lyricist. She's really talented. So, but the fact is that she had the skills, but at the same time, she wasn't like bragging or anything. She was she was lifting other people up and showing us that, oh, you can learn this too. That's what's great about having good leaders.
And if I can add one thing,
Please do.
So one of the things that I found, and so it's like the last 4 or 5 years that the club's been growing, it's been like a constant experiment in figuring out like how do we grow a club with number of people that can fill all the roles, especially once I came on the task of wanting our quality to look like Tom's Kids.
Oh yeah, that was a big motivator. Like I saw like his music videos, and I'm just like, what happened?
And like the West Side rival. And so I'm like, we need to do like these are middle schoolers, guys, and they have, I mean, granted they have a whole semester, but I wanted my kids to be able to do it in one afternoon. And what I realized was amongst the experiments, one of the other things, so they touched on a vast majority of the things that have been really effective over the years. The one big one is the pleasure of completing a project or a song or a video versus the amount of work and stress that goes into making it. It's kind of there's like the classic happiness quotient. It's what you have over what you want, and so in this way, it's what you produce over how much work you put into that product. And the value of what you produce it comes from both what kind of feedback you get about it, how much value you see it going towards it, you see people learning from it, and also like, do you genuinely like how it sounds or what it looks like? And then how much work goes into it? Did this take hours and hours and hours? Is it not quite? Is it not what you envisioned in your head? And so in order to really consolidate these things together, we started this thing called Challenge Thursday. And the idea of Challenge Thursday, which kind of jump-started the club's life about 4 years ago, and really when it started to fully come to life, was where we make the whole music video in one afternoon. And so in the process, reducing the time that it takes to make a project, while they still get a music video at the end, which is short enough that can be played on the school announcements the next day. And so they're getting the feedback, they're getting the quality, like for the amount of time, they're getting a decent quality. And so for students first time coming, if they came on a Challenge Thursday, they were really able to get that joy out of, whoa, I was just here one day and I already made a song, or I already made a music video that I can walk home with. It's stuck in my head right now. So it was a really good catcher to bring people in. And plus, I remember someone was saying, on those days, all hands are on deck. And so for each student to find their place, basically someone who's sitting still, one of the officers or one of the experienced members would be like, would quickly grab them and be like, come on in, we need you over here. Quickly jump in And we could use some help here if you want to do some video or something.
Yeah, but like, to be fair though, it's usually me and Silber that are here last because we edit the videos. It's like all the songwriters leave after the song is finished. After everything's recorded and everything's filmed, they leave. All right, then the editors stay, which is usually just like 2 or 3 people.
But last year we had like 7 people at the end of every day.
Okay, thank you. SW. I want to just quickly give Tom and Sarah a final crack at this question as well.
Wow, we took the time.
Tom has put some comments in the chat window, and Sarah has put some. Do you want to briefly kind of talk us through what you were typing, Sarah and Tom?
Sure. I just wrote kind of my answer to the question, which I think the students really reinforced. You heard by their examples that it takes a long time to build culture. The idea that you could just like immediately, the first time trying an activity like this, get buy-in from students is actually insane. Like you'll get 1 or 2 really students who like get it because they're on another wavelength and they're like really mature, but it's taken them years to build this like supportive community. I've worked with classrooms and schools who've made Freestyle Friday clubs where they like come and freestyle. It's not about science, it's just about sharing hip hop at school. And that took years of like the first time they did it, like the older kids didn't want to do it because they couldn't cuss and they couldn't do whatever. But by acculturating it with younger kids first, they were able to set this tone, get the buy-in. So then when those kids became older, they were setting the tone. So just like don't underestimate the power of iteration of years. Javi, you guys might want to mute your side there. Can you guys mute your
yeah.
The stakes beyond grades, I think, is pretty important. That like the idea that your thing will be published on YouTube for other people to watch, or the idea that you're going to perform it for a class, the social connections, the pride that they put into it, and then just like this idea of bringing their full selves. I think if your identity is not as a musician, then having somebody make a song is not necessarily tapping into their identity. So whether it's songs or something else, you definitely want to facilitate that. All right, we got a lot more kids. Sarah, do you want to jump into your question there?
Yeah, I was just wondering, and this is kind of more thinking, but this, like listening to them talk really underlines what Greg and I found out about students having personal connections to the creation of music. And also to science a little bit, but I was just wondering about the identity piece and how much, 4SW sees themselves as scientists, or do you see yourselves as musicians, and what is that balance like? And I would probably argue that depending on the program and the purpose behind creating songs or anything like this, the purpose may not be to create, budding scientists. It might be to build particular kinds of cultures and ways of being. And yeah.
So 4SW, you're welcome to respond, but
all right, so I'm
concise. So okay, because we're almost out of time. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so it's not about science for me at all. I don't like, the thing that I like about the club is that it explains science so I understand it so I can pass the class. Yeah. What I usually get out of it is like what you said, the culture, the family, and the learning, like the actual work experience, because I want to do this when I grow up. So, wow. Thanks, Silber. Anyways, yeah, that's my response.
All right. For me, it's both. I like science. I'm like a STEM person. I love it all, and I love music so much. So it's kind of like it brings it all together, and I love it.
Same with me. I see myself more as a musician than a scientist. But one of my potential careers would probably involve science. I'm looking forward to that. But for me, it's both. I like that
that we are able as a group to make songs that can help people to understand it in a simpler way. And also people are more likely to I feel that more people are likely to understand when they are interested. And with music, people can be more interested, so more likely to understand.
Yeah. Okay, we're out of time. Again, sorry to be kind of this sort of inattentive person about time, but that's my job. So thank you so much to Sarah and to Tom and to all of the 4SW participants. It's been great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You're very
All right,
welcome.
on the count of 3, everyone say hi, guys. 1, 2, 3.
I wonder if you can see them all.
All right, eat at Chipotle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.